to View Bible Camp family, and welcome again to the Mountaintop Advent Series. As we continue to read the book, Love Came Down at Christmas by Sinclair B. Ferguson. Chapter 17, Endurance Test. Love endures all things. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 7. The Christian life is an endurance test. I remember reading as a teenager Paul's famous words about the Christian warfare and armor, Ephesians chapter 6. I paused at verses 13 and 14. Take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day. Great. But then Paul goes on, and having done all, to stand firm. Stand, therefore. I still remember thinking, is that it? Is that all? Is that the sum total? Just standing? Surely there must be more, much more. What about the victorious Christian life, and the life with a capital L? I am showing my age by mentioning these descriptions of the Christian life, but there are contemporary versions. Here, for example, is the description of a recent Christian book, Just Like Superman, who can leap over any hurdle to defeat every foe. Followers of Christ have the supernatural ability to conquer the challenges we face. In comparison, Paul's words about simply managing to remain standing don't seem too impressive. Looking back on my own Christian life, far from having been like Superman, it seems almost miraculous that I am still standing. In 1 Corinthians 13, Paul is like an expert jeweler examining the famous love diamond. You can almost imagine him with a little loop to his eye, slowly turning love around to the light, examining every facet. He sees things most of us don't notice and points out features we would probably ignore. He does that here. Love endures all things. He had already said that love is patient and that it bears all things. What he says now sounds very similar. Love endures all things. But there is a difference. He uses three different words. Here, endures is the verb to remain or stay, with a prefix which implies the idea of being underneath or below. Endurance is the ability to remain underneath. Picture a weightlifting competition at the Olympic Games. Rubbing white chalk onto his hands, his belt in position, his upper body bulging with strength, the competitor steps onto the mat, puts his hands on the barbells, takes deep breaths, snatches them in one moment, and then jerks them above his head in another movement. He is lifting over 250 kilos or 500 pounds. His arms tremble, his body shudders under the weight, but he manages to remain stable. He's still standing. He's given the green light. Down go the barbells, bouncing on the floor, and he raises his arms in a gesture of satisfied triumph. You would need to be a cynic to say all he did was to remain standing. Anyone could do that. No, he remained standing under tremendous pressure. That is what Paul says love does. Remember Asaph, the often struggling director of music in the Jerusalem temple? When he wandered around the city, he saw people who despised his faith. He thought, their bodies are fat and sleek. They are not in trouble as others are. Pride is their necklace. He was honest enough to say, I was envious of the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. But then he went back up to the hill, to the temple. There he saw things as they really are. He had been looking through the wrong end of the telescope. He says, my feet had almost stumbled. My steps had nearly slipped. But now in the temple, he is on his feet again. he is still standing. He is able to endure the pressures. In the temple, he rediscovers God's covenant love, expressed in Scripture and song and sacrifice. The knowledge of that love keeps his love going. Psalms 73 to 83 are all psalms of Asaph. Every one of them describes his struggles. He is like a weightlifter coming onto the mat, uncertain whether he can remain under the weight of the pressures he feels. But at the end, he is still standing and able to say, "You alone, whose name is the Lord, are the most high over all the earth." Do you notice the way the word Lord is written? In modern translations, Lord, capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, rather than Lord, capital L, small o, R, D, represents the Hebrew word Yahweh, the great covenant name for God, the name he revealed to Moses. It's God's personal name, which he gives to his people to use. It reminds them that he is their faithful God, the one who is committed to them in love. So, you can see what it was that turned Asaph's perspective around. The knowledge of love, of the loving God, Yahweh, the Lord. It is that which will keep us standing. It is his love which holds us fast. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem, there was no room for him in the inn. The Son of God was lowered from heaven into a wooden feeding trough for a cradle. But in a sense, this was prophetic of his whole life. As a roaming preacher, he had nowhere to lay his head. But it was true, especially of his death. At the end of his life, he was cradled once more by wood, then when he was lifted up onto the cross. It was then that darkness descended, not only on the land, but also over Jesus. Then came the only time in his life when he felt that the Lord of love had abandoned him. His experience was darker than Asaph's. He no longer felt, "You hold my right hand." Instead, the words of Psalm 22, verse 1, expressed his sense of dereliction. My God, why have you forsaken me?" He came under the crushing weight of God's wrath against us, and it left him without any sense of his love. He felt there was no room for him on earth or in heaven. But his love endured all things. Rather than call on 12 legions of angels to deliver him, his arms remained outstretched, like the cosmic weightlifter he was, bearing the sins of the world. In his love for his Father and for us, he remained obedient, still trusting even in his desolation, and continuing to call God, my God. At that moment, his love for his Father was tested to the limit, and it endured. How could this be? It was because Jesus knew in advance that in Calvary's darkness, when he felt abandoned, that would actually be the time when his Father's love for him would know no bounds. Earlier, he had told his disciples, "For this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life." Can we imagine the Father singing, as Christians have done often, "My Jesus, I love thee. I know thou art mine. If ever I love thee, my Jesus, 'tis now." The Son of God knew God's plan for our salvation before he ever undertook his mission. He entered the darkness of Mary's womb, knowing full well that it would lead to the deeper darkness of the agony of Gethsemane and Calvary. But because love endured all, he kept going. So what is it that you feel the weight of today? What circumstances seem to be bearing down on you? In what relationship do you feel at the end of your tether? Take heart. Your love can endure all things, because Christ has endured all things for you. His love will keep you standing, knowing that love came down at Christmas. I want to take a moment to thank you for reading along with us today from the book Love Came Down at Christmas. We would like to thank the Good Book Company for graciously allowing us to share this book in its entirety with our followers from camp. To purchase a copy of this book for yourself or for a loved one, please go to thegoodbook.com or Amazon. The links can be found in the description of these readings that we are sharing with you. If you enjoy this book and want to learn more about the author or further publishings, please like or follow the Good Book Company on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We trust you have a safe, joyful, and wonderful holiday season.